Lonely CEO discovers an amazing connection with a little girl. Will he become her daddy forever? Ethan Wallace stood in his glittering penthouse, the Chicago skyline wrapping around him like a shimmering, solitary cloak. The skyline, once a testament to his accomplishments, now felt like a gilded cage. He stared out at the streets below, bustling with life while his own existence echoed with emptiness. His father's death had hollowed him out, leaving behind a profound sense of loss that no board meeting or financial report could ever remedy. The lavish parties and corporate accolades were a facade, one that left him wrestling with despair. Beneath it all lay an emotional void that wealth couldn't fill. As he paced, the weight of guilt gnawed at him, discomfort for the privileges he wore like armor while others suffered. With a deep, wavering breath, he finally committed to spending his spare time volunteering at a community center. Perhaps this was a step toward redemption, a way to reconnect with the world he'd lost faith in. And it was there, amid the laughter of children and the stories of hardship, that he first met Mia. The spirited girl exuded light with her eager questions and playful spirit, quickly turning his visit into a grounding experience. Their initial interaction, a simple exchange of smiles, was a spark igniting something deep within him. In that moment, Mia's piercing laughter shattered Ethan's lingering desolation. Could he, a man steeped in corporate darkness, truly find solace in a child's joy? As the weeks progressed, their time together transformed into unexpected delights. They explored the waterfront, indulging in extravagant ice creams as they watched boats drift by, Mia's giggles reverberating through the air. Each library visit felt like opening a new world, inviting Ethan to rediscover the magic of storytelling through the eyes of an 8-year-old. As Mia shared tales of her dreams, Ethan found himself laughing, truly laughing, for the first time in years. Each moment spent in her company stirred a longing within, an unquenchable thirst for connection that made the walls of his penthouse seem even more desolate. But alongside this burgeoning relationship simmered an undeniable tension. Mia's world was fraught with uncertainty. She navigated the relentless chaos of foster care, perpetually searching for stability that seemed to elude her. Ethan, a high-powered CEO consumed by corporate pressures, felt powerless. Could he really step into the role of a father figure for a girl who had faced the harsh realities of life alone? As he contemplated adoption, the ramifications grew more pressing. The emotional stakes surged, conflict erupted between his desire to embrace Mia and the reality of a rigid system that deemed him an unsuitable guardian. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let us continue. Caught in a relentless storm of emotion, Ethan faced meetings with social workers, the scrutiny of everyone who regarded him with suspicion. The stigma of a single man wanting to be a father loomed heavy, constricting his heart with fear. Each conversation pulled him deeper into an abyss of doubt. Would the system allow him to protect the one bright spark in his life? What if all his efforts combusted, leaving Mia once again wandering through the shadows? The anguish of potential loss suffocated him, strangling the breath from his lungs as he grappled with the inevitability of his decisions. As he stood on the precipice of a life-altering choice, the storm within him roared loudly. Ethan questioned whether he possessed the fortitude to confront the pain of vulnerability, or would he let go of the little girl who had illuminated the darkest corners of his heart? The answer loomed just out of reach, shrouded in uncertainty, as the stakes grew unbearably high. Ethan paced the marble expanse of his penthouse, each step echoing the turbulent thoughts racing through his mind. The legacy he meticulously crafted as a high-powered CEO meant nothing when placed against the stark reality of potential loss. His previous life revolved around ambition and industry, blind to the emotional side of existence. Everything he learned to navigate contracts, negotiations, financial forecasts seemed bewilderingly irrelevant as he wrestled with the profound responsibility of wanting to be a father for Mia. As he stared at the skyline that once symbolized triumph, he realized it now surrounded him with shadows. The meetings he'd endured in the last few weeks weighed him down. Social workers flipping through checklists and scrutinizing his character made him feel like a mere statistic rather than a man striving to forge a real connection. They raised doubts that twisted and buried themselves in his mind what would make them believe he could provide the stability Mia desperately needed. In the depths of his heart, however, a flicker of resolve began to emerge. If he truly wished to claim the role of her protector, he needed to confront these challenges head-on. Not just for the sake of his own desires, but for Mia's future. He could not allow fear to dictate his actions. Each moment spent with her ignited a fire within him, forcing him to interrogate his own limitations and insecurities. He thought of her laughter, the joy that radiated from her innocent spirit, and the unyielding hope she exuded. Wouldn't it be dishonorable to retreat into the comfort of his high-rise when she needed him? Determined to shift this narrative, Ethan crafted a plan. It was time to present himself as worthy of the role he yearned to play. He booked a meeting with an adoption consultant, a decision that sent adrenaline coursing through his veins. Wouldn't this be the first step toward proving that he could break through societal expectations, surpassing the judgments of others? But a gnawing anxiety persisted. He grappled with his own nature, with the remnants of that unkind corporate world telling him competence was all that mattered. What he needed to deploy was not just business acumen but vulnerability, authenticity. He recalled their library visits, each story exploring resilience, family, and heartbeat connections. He mentally prepared himself to share his own narrative with Mia, to be honest about his struggles, to build a foundation based on trust. Compelling as it was, the thought terrified him. Could he tear down the armor cultivated from years of corporate life, expose his heart, and let her see him as he truly was? Days passed, with each interaction with Mia becoming more profound. In the laughter shared over ice creams and evenings lost in the vivid tales of imagination, Ethan attempted to weave a sense of familial warmth into their bond, both as a lesson for himself and an anchor for Mia. He wanted her to know that he wasn't just a temporary fixture in her chaos, but a willing participant eager to fight against it for her sake. The urgency simmered within him, driving him to be proactive. The time had come to face the collective doubts head on: the system, the social workers, and perhaps even the ghosts of his own unsettling thoughts. Perhaps if he laid out his vision for a life shared with Mia, it would resonate, and they would see the empathy and love pulsing beneath his surface. He knew that crafting this future wouldn't be easy. The cooperative elements of adoption policy and public perception sat heavily on the trajectory ahead of him. But he steeled himself, understanding that the hardest step was the one that led him directly to the heart of his greatest fear. As he secured the appointment with the consultant, a wavering determination grew stronger. His pulse quickened, moments away were riddled with tension. Would he find the strength to pursue the family he never expected to want? The weight balance between possibility and dread promised to unravel the next chapter of his life, tormented yet thrilling. But even as Ethan took that pivotal step towards hope, new obstacles loomed ahead, threatening to snuff out this fragile light of connection. What if it wasn't enough? What if Mia's ultimate fate rested on forces much larger than him, beyond his influence? Distraught yet resolved, he steeled himself for the challenges lurking just beyond the horizon, a storm of emotion promising to reshape everything he knew. Ethan sat in the coffee shop, heart racing as he waited for his appointment with the adoption consultant. The aroma of roasted beans filled the air, but he couldn't find comfort in the warmth of the surroundings. Instead, he replayed every potential question the consultant could ask in his head, feeling the familiar tightness return to his chest. It was both thrilling and terrifying to step into this new world. As the clock ticked closer to the meeting, he reflected on the past few days with Mia. He realized he had been subconsciously studying her, not only her behavior but also his reactions to her. Each moment they spent together became a mosaic of learning about joy, playfulness, and what it felt like to genuinely connect with someone. But with that learning came doubt. The memories of his corporate life whispered that such connections were easily broken, transactions devoid of emotional impact. When the door swung open, and a woman in her 40s, wearing framed glasses and a warm smile, entered, Ethan stood to greet her. Christine, the consultant, exuded an air of calm assurance that made him momentarily forget his anxiety. She gestured for him to sit, and as he did, he immediately felt the weight of his intentions pressing down. "Ethan, is it? I've heard a lot about you and your interest in fostering Mia," she began, her tone inviting but probing. "Yes," he said, forcing the syllable from his throat, "I want to adopt her. I believe I can provide what she needs." Christine studied him, her eyes searching for authenticity beneath his polished facade. "What do you think Mia needs?" The question struck him like a lightning bolt. He knew the textbook answers: security, love, stability, but deeper than that, what she truly required was connection. In that moment of hesitation, Ethan felt stripped bare, exposed in ways that frightened him. He closed his eyes, recalled the moments of laughter over storybooks, and the quiet whispers of dreams they shared. "A father," he blurted. The word felt strangely foreign yet liberating. She needs someone who will always be there for her. Someone she can trust. Christine nodded, her demeanor shifting as if she recognized a vital kernel of truth within his words. "And do you believe you are that person?" The honesty of her question forced his self-reflection deeper. He recalled the hours spent in boardrooms, the relentless pursuit of success intertwined with loneliness. Was he ready to transcend that persona? Time spent with Mia had illuminated a desire to nurture beyond his well-defined business acumen. "I want to be," Ethan affirmed, his voice steadying. "I want to create a home for her, not just a place to stay." As the conversation progressed, Christine challenged him with difficult realities: financial stability, emotional readiness, and the shadows of their pasts. Each point pierced through the defensive walls he had meticulously crafted over the years. With each challenge she presented, Ethan felt the remnants of the corporate armor he was trying to shed. After the hour concluded, Christine stood. "Ethan, adopting Mia isn't just about wanting her, it's about proving that you can offer her what she needs. You have to be her advocate, truly embodying the role of a father. If you're ready to do that, I think you can succeed." His heart raced. This was not a simple evaluation. It was a commitment that could reshape his life, one anchored in care, honesty, and vulnerability. As he left the cafe, the world seemed layered with possibility. But as the sun dipped below the skyline, a new intensity flared up within him. Could he navigate the personal trials ahead, transforming his ambition into genuine love? He was left confronting a stark realization: the journey he embarked upon would require every ounce of courage he had, magnified by the fear of losing not just the fight for Mia, but the chance at real connection itself. With every step, he felt the weight of expectations, both his and everyone else's. Would he find the growth he desperately needed, and perhaps more importantly, would Mia? The answer loomed ahead as an unsettling question, waiting to reveal its truth. Ethan found himself standing on the bustling street, absorbed in thought. The vibrant city around him was a stark contrast to the swirling emotions within. The idea of becoming a father wasn't just a new path, it felt like an entire terrain he needed to map out. He had spent years navigating boardrooms, but today, the stakes felt impossibly higher, rooted in deep emotional commitment and the weight of another's future. As he ambled through the streets, his mind showcased a series of questions. What made a father? Could he confront his unresolved loneliness while filling a void in someone else's life? As an executive, he had prided himself on decisiveness and clarity, but in this realm, uncertainty loomed. The usual metrics for success, profit margins, quarterly reports, seemed unbearably hollow against the delicate human needs he now faced. That evening, a plan began to form as he returned to his apartment. Sitting at his kitchen table, he laid out a few sheets of paper, intending to articulate his thoughts. It was crucial, he believed, to write down how he envisioned this relationship. He started with Mia, her name a beacon illuminating the unknown. Open communication, he wrote, and setting boundaries. He paused, unsure. What boundaries could keep her safe while allowing her the freedom to explore? Another line emerged, creating a routine. He recalled how much Mia thrived on predictability, her eyes lighting up during their storytime sessions. This simple insight might serve as a foundation, a structure for both of their lives. Yet, the deeper he delved, the more complex his emotions became. Dealing with emotional outbursts. He jotted it down hesitantly. He had been unprepared for her moments of frustration. He needed to learn. But how would he, a man defined by rigidity, provide comfort in chaos? As the ink flowed, he recognized the patterns of his old self creeping back in, the need for control, the urge to dissect every problem. Each note became deeply personal, a confession of his insecurities, a roadmap to transformation. He challenged himself, setting a bold heading, emotional availability. The words felt foreign, an incantation he had never had to conjure in his previous life. Determined, Ethan picked up his phone to review resources on parenting. He read articles about building trust with children, understanding their language that differed significantly from the jargon he was used to. The experience felt strange. Every click and swipe was a rebellion against the person he had been. In the following days, Ethan approached Mia with renewed intent. He introduced small rituals, a special handshake before school, shared breakfast choices, and impromptu dance parties in the living room. Interestingly, Mia responded eagerly, her laughter melding effortlessly with the rhythm of their new life together. Yet underlying his excitement was a gnawing fear. One afternoon, after a particularly jovial encounter while painting together, Mia began to withdraw. The sudden somberness in her demeanor puzzled Ethan. Why the shift? Questions echoed in his mind. Was his newfound approach adequate? Was he inadvertently triggering hers or his own unresolved uncertainties? Eventually, that evening, he decided to sit beside her as she curled into a tight ball on the couch. "What's on your mind, Mia?" he asked softly, wanting to reach for her vulnerability without force. When she responded with hesitance, the vulnerability of a child blended with the wisdom of life's heartaches struck him sharply. At that moment, he embraced her fear and recognized his own reflected in her eyes, a realization that both of them were navigating a new journey filled with uncertainties. As the sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the room, he understood. The connection they were forging was not only one of hope but one of resilience. Could he absorb her fears as she began to do with his? The realization settled heavily, igniting a new resolve within him. But would this understanding of shared vulnerability be enough to build a bridge through all their lingering uncertainties? Ethan felt a tight knot in his gut. What if his journey to becoming a father forced him to confront his deepest fears? It was time for another reckoning, a moment that could fracture or solidify their bond. As he pondered this, the weight of the question loomed larger than each of them combined, demanding an answer he had yet to find. What would his commitment truly entail when vulnerability was on the table? Ethan awoke the next morning with a heaviness in his chest. The golden light spilled through the curtains, illuminating the kitchen table still cluttered with the remnants of his thoughts from the night before. He brewed a cup of coffee, inhaling the dark, rich aroma as he tried to shake off the anxiety that had nested in him following his emotional confrontation with Mia. He thought back to her hesitance the previous night. How did he, a man accustomed to dominance in meetings and strategy sessions, navigate an emotional landscape defined by vulnerability and fear? He needed to expand his arsenal of coping mechanisms, not just for himself but for Mia too. This was about more than just reassuring her, it was about mutual healing. As he sat down to sketch out his day, Ethan's eyes drifted to the parenting articles he had printed. Each page seemed to beckon him into a world where success wasn't measured by dollar signs but by smiles and shared moments. He highlighted a passage: understanding a child's emotional language requires patience and presence. His corporate instincts kicked in at the edge of this new approach. Could he apply principles of management to this realm? He flipped back to his notes and jotted down: active listening. Underneath, he wrote: make space for silence. Back in the boardroom, silence had meant tension, but here it could mean reflection, acceptance. That evening, he planned a no-phones dinner. No distractions, just the two of them at the table. As Mia arrived home, he excitedly set the scene: homemade spaghetti, soft music, and flickering candlelight. He felt odd straying from his usual rituals of efficiency, but a part of him recognized that this moment mattered. As they sat down, Mia looked at him curiously. The initial silence filled the room, and Ethan fought the urge to fill it with quick conversation. Instead, he took a deep breath and simply asked, "What was the best part of your day?" Mia's eyes lit up. The honor of sharing her thoughts washed over her, and she began recounting her day at school. Each word was a thread binding them closer, allowing Ethan to see glimpses of her joy and worries. As she spoke, he concentrated fiercely, feeling the tug of her emotions, practicing that newfound active listening. Over time, however, her recounting shifted, and flickers of her earlier somberness reappeared. "Ethan," she paused, her gaze dropping, "will you always be here?" The question hit him like a jolt. This was more than a child's curiosity. It was an anchor into the depths of her fear of abandonment. His previous confidence wavered, revealing how profoundly he had underestimated the shadows of her past. He swallowed, feeling exposed. "I'm here now, Mia. I want to be here for you, always." The weight of that commitment felt monumental, yet it also sparked a surge of determination within him. He had access to grind with the part of himself that still grappled with his own abandonment issues. What if he made a promise he couldn't keep? As they finished dinner, he knew the government of their relationship had shifted. He couldn't fabricate a world where vulnerability didn't exist. Instead, he had to embrace it as a foundation. Mia's needs had begun to mirror his own longing for stability in the face of uncertainty. Days turned into weeks, each filled with small moments of learning: how to handle disappointment during a failed board game, how to hold space for silence during her processing moments, how to celebrate her milestones both big and tiny. Yet, despite the progress, the fear loomed like a specter in every corner of his mind. The deeper they ventured into this relationship, the more Ethan questioned his ability to sustain this emotional availability. One evening, as they read together, he caught her glancing at him, her eyes wide with hope. Could he really be the father figure she needed? He felt the pressure to rise to the occasion tinged with the trepidation of failure. What if his past haunted him more deeply than he realized? Would his growth truly suffice to secure their bond? As he pondered the prospect of their future, the very essence of his journey began to crystallize. It wasn't just filling a role. It was about redefining himself. But as he realized this, he couldn't shake the unsettling feeling that something darker loomed on the horizon, threatening to fracture this fragile connection they had built. How could he sustain this delicate balance of hope and fear? The answers felt just out of reach, while the implications of every decision he made weighed heavily on him. The time had come to confront those uncertainties head-on, but would he have the strength to bridge the chasm threatening to pull them apart? Ethan stood at the edge of a precipice within himself, his mind racing through the risks and potential consequences of his growing bond with Mia. Each moment felt like a delicate step on a tightrope. One misstep could send him tumbling into past shadows he had avoided for so long. He stared out the window, where the dusk settled gently over the cityscape, then turned to the mess of papers and notes covering the table. Each piece represented a fragment of his endeavor to become not just a caretaker, but a reliable figure in Mia's life. The next day, he resolved to be more intentional in creating a supportive environment, where both he and Mia could discuss their fears openly. While his corporate environment thrived on results and efficiency, this new path asked for emotional transparency and altogether different currency for success. Sitting down to map out an approach, he wrote down key concepts: honesty leads to trust, mistakes are learning opportunities, and emotions are safety nets. He needed to integrate these ideas into their daily interactions. When Mia returned from school, he introduced the concept of family meetings. A tangible step, he hoped, would help erode any unspoken tensions. At dinner, he explained his intention with enthusiasm. "Mia, I was thinking we could have a family meeting every week. A time to share how we are feeling, and what we might need from each other. What do you think?" Her bright eyes lit up, but her brow furrowed slightly. "Like talking through feelings?" "Exactly," he replied, feeling a twitch of pride as he embraced the unfamiliar role of facilitator. "It's like a check-in for both of us." The first meeting felt stilted, awkward silences piercing through their initial excitement. Mia sat with her hands clasped, uncertainty flickering across her face. He prompted gently, "You can start wherever you want." After a moment she spoke, her voice small, "I like the spaghetti. But sometimes I feel sad." Ethan felt a lump form in his throat. Here it was a portal open to reveal the vulnerabilities they navigated, blanketed by comfort. "Do you want to talk about what makes you sad?" he coaxed. Mia paused, searching for words that felt both heavy and elusive. "Mom." That single word echoed in the room, an uninvited ghost that neither of them could ignore. Ethan's heart sank, a reminder that beneath her smiles lay a tapestry of unprocessed grief. He struggled not to retreat to his corporate instincts, where solutions were immediate and quantifiable. Instead, he knew he had to hold the space for her pain. "It's okay to miss your mom, Mia. I miss my family too. We can do this together." As the weeks rolled on, their meetings evolved. The discussions grew deeper, more nuanced, allowing Mia to express her fears about losing him, much like she lost her mother. Ethan was surprised by his own emotional revelations too. He admitted his fears of being yet another figure to abandon her, memories of his own childhood creeping into the light. Yet, the deeper they dove into their emotional dialogue, the more Ethan honed his listening skills, becoming attuned to Mia's unspoken concerns. He embraced the practice of validating her emotions, reinforcing that her feelings were not just acceptable but instrumental in their healing. But with each step forward came an unexpected pushback from his professional life. Colleagues began to notice his heightened emotional state, questioning his focus and decision-making. As a result, he found himself torn between two worlds, one grounded in data, strategy, and results, and the other rooted in emotional connectivity, vulnerability, and trust. One late afternoon at work, his boss confronted him, pressing just how much his current distraction could cost the company. The tension was palpable. A storm brewed not just around his performance but within him. Would he fall back into the chase of corporate success, seduced by the familiar lure, or continue cultivating this new terrain that nourished his soul alongside Mia's? Standing at this crossroads left him feeling raw. The whispers of his past shadowed him, reminding him of how easy it would be to retreat when confronted with conflict. Mia depended on him, and for the first time, he understood the weight of that responsibility. Yet, at that moment, clarity began to dawn. He was capable of integrating both worlds. It was not an abandonment of ambition but a redefinition. How would he blend his identity as a father figure with that of a corporate leader? This duality would require creativity and resilience. But internally, he couldn't shake the sensation that imminent changes were on the horizon, ones that could turn their fragile developments into an uphill battle. Certainty nagged at him, while uncertainty loomed threateningly nearby. The answers were incomplete, barely forming amidst the chaos of both his personal struggles and professional pressures. The time had come to consolidate his newfound self-awareness. What unique approach would he take to harmonize the demands of his job with the commitments to Mia? The true test lay ahead, one that would demand every ounce of resolve. Ethan inhaled, ready to face the potential storm. Would he prove capable of forging a path that could sustain not just his professional aspirations but the emotional safety net Mia so desperately needed? The sun rose with an intensity that mirrored the urgency Ethan felt as he prepared for the day. Balancing his dual identities loomed over him like a shadow, an ever-present weight pushing against his chest. He needed a strategy, a framework that would allow him to coexist as a supportive figure in Mia's life while remaining a competent leader. At the office, he encountered Sally, his longtime colleague, who had become a touchstone of wisdom in moments of uncertainty. "Are you good, Ethan? You seem off," she asked, her brow furrowed with concern. He hesitated, allowing his professional facade to crack just a fraction. "I'm juggling a lot right now, personal stuff." Sally nodded knowingly. "Just remember, it's okay to ask for help. You don't have to carry it all yourself." Her words struck a chord. This idea of asking for help within his rigid corporate culture was foreign. He was the pillar everybody leaned on him, but who did he lean on? That evening, Ethan brooded over the day's interactions. The pressure to perform was relentless, yet the softness of Mia's vulnerability at their family meetings lingered in his mind like a soothing balm. He needed to create a bridge, a seamless connection between his professional acumen and the emotional intelligence he was developing at home. The following morning, Ethan drafted an email to schedule a team meeting under the theme of emotional intelligence and leadership. While the decision felt somewhat audacious, he knew it was essential for self-growth. Could he cultivate an open dialogue among his colleagues, similar to the discussions he now cherished with Mia? He pressed send, anxiety coursing through him. At that day's family meeting, Ethan decided to introduce a new focus. Mia, I was thinking we could explore some of the tools I learned at my work today. It's all about understanding and helping each other. Mia tilted her head, curiosity bubbling to the surface. What kind of tools? Things like active listening and empathy, he explained, conscious of the stakes involved. These can help us better support one another. Together, they delved into role-playing scenarios. Ethan guided Mia through the concept of active listening frequently deployed in their corporate training sessions. She giggled nervously as she struggled to reflect on what he said, positioning this exercise as a game. But with each exchange, Ethan discovered a realm of untapped skills within himself. His ability to adapt corporate strategies to their conversations deepened the bond with Mia. Rather than draw a hard line between his roles, he saw potential for them to enrich one another. The magic arose when vulnerability met the structural strength he had cultivated in his career. Yet, as success flourished in one realm, adversity emerged in another. That afternoon, Ethan received an email from his boss, directly addressing his performance and hinting at potential disciplinary actions. The world he had worked so tirelessly to build threatened to crumble under scrutiny. Crushed beneath the intensity of conflicting expectations, Ethan felt the familiar wave of self-doubt sweep through him. Struggling to breathe, he realized he had reached the tipping point. If he didn't rally himself, the supportive haven he had created for Mia and the progress they had made could become frayed at the edges. Keep moving forward, he whispered to himself. You can't let fear dictate your path. Inspiration struck. He recalled Sally's earlier words about asking for help, and the idea was transformative. What if he invited his colleagues to share their struggles in an open forum, much like the meetings with Mia? This would require him to embrace vulnerability in front of them and foster collaboration rather than merely dictate solutions. Determined, he began drafting a plan for his next meeting, where he'd bring both his corporate insight and newfound emotional awareness to the forefront. Would this be the moment where he would courageously merge both aspects of himself, or would it plunge him deeper into turmoil? As the hour approached for his meeting, adrenaline surged within him, propelling a fresh resolve. He would not retreat. He would forge a path through the uncertainty. But the echo of his boss's stern warning loomed over him, and he realized that stepping into his truth might risk everything he had worked for. Would he muster the courage to face his fears and reveal the man he was becoming, even if it meant risking his career? Or would he choose the safety of silence? The answer loomed on the horizon, pulling him closer to a crossroads that could redefine both his professional and personal identity. Ethan paced the conference room, the clock ticking steadily toward the hour that had the potential to alter his trajectory. The walls, typically a source of comfort with their corporate sheen, now enclosed him like an interrogation chamber, amplifying his anxiety. He knew this was a pivotal moment. He had resolved to be vulnerable, yet the weight of uncertainty draped heavily on his shoulders, a poignant reminder of the stakes involved. He set the room up meticulously, arranging the chairs in a circle to foster inclusivity. As colleagues trickled in, Ethan greeted them with a forced smile, their concerned glances reflecting his internal discord. Each person brought their own burdens. He wondered if they recognized the struggles brewing within him. The familiar office banter felt faint, muffled beneath the din of his racing thoughts. When the last person arrived, he glanced around the room, feigning confidence as he initiated the discussion. Thank you all for being here today. I wanted to change things up a bit. Let's talk about emotional intelligence in our roles. I think it's time we had an open dialogue about our experiences. Murmurs of surprise rippled through the room, unsure reactions mingling with curiosity. He sensed the skepticism hovering but pressed forward. We often discuss our KPIs and project outcomes, but what about the human side of our work? Sally, seated in the front, raised an eyebrow. Are you saying we should share our personal challenges? That's not typical. Ethan's heart raced. he noticed beads of perspiration forming at his temples. This was his moment of truth. Would he retreat behind the veil of professionalism, or expose the messy complexities of his life? He gathered his resolve. Exactly that. We can't function at our best if we don't address the stress and emotional fatigue we carry. A silence enveloped the room, thick and full of potential. Then, a shy voice broke through. Lucy, a junior analyst, hesitated then spoke. Honestly, I've been feeling overwhelmed. My workload has been heavy, and I worry I'm not meeting expectations. Ethan's pulse quickened. Lucy's admission began to thaw the shock, showing him a glimpse of the collective struggle. Thank you for sharing that. It takes courage to acknowledge challenges. What if we brainstorm solutions together? To his surprise, the conversation deepened, colleagues nodding in agreement as they shared their own pressures and uncertainties. The interaction felt electric, a communal warmth forming as they banded together, each person revealing layers of hardship and resilience. As the meeting unfolded, Ethan shed more of his professional armor. He shared his own struggles with balancing work and life, the fear of disciplinary action, and the desire to be a better father figure to Mia. Vulnerability transformed into a shared experience, an act of solidarity that bound them closer together. Once the meeting concluded, Ethan felt a rush of exhilaration and relief. Instead of feeling universally scrutinized, he discovered camaraderie within his team. This newfound openness gave him strength. For the first time, he sensed that he wasn't alone in his journey. He gazed around at faces that had previously appeared distant, now reflecting empathy and understanding. Yet as the adrenaline wore off, the reality set back in. His boss's email still weighed on him, and though this meeting had bred connection, it had also ignited fears of repercussions. In this moment of profound vulnerability, what if exposing his authentic self put him at an even greater risk? His heart raced again, the contrast between the triumph in the room and the apprehension clawing at him leaving him conflicted. If he had carved space for honesty with his colleagues, how could he bring that same ethos into the meeting he would inevitably have with his boss? Ethan stood by the window, watching the light dance across the buildings as he wrestled with the looming decision. The echoes of the meeting's laughter collided sharply with the reality of deeper challenges he still had to confront. The moment had come for him to confront not just his boss but the personal evolution that had stirred within him. Would he stand firm in this newfound vulnerability, or would he retreat into the shadows of his former self? The answer awaited him, a looming confrontation that could seal his fate. Ethan exhaled slowly, the rhythm of his breathing mirroring the tumult within. The sun cast long shadows across his desk, and in that quiet moment, doubt washed over him like a familiar tide. Would his newfound openness matter in the unforgiving realm of corporate politics? He combed his fingers through his hair, each stroke an act of defiance against the uncertainty that sought to paralyze him. He thought back to the meeting, the way vulnerability had rallied his team. It was a revelation. Yet, standing at the precipice of judgment from his boss, that sense of connection felt fragile. Would his boss appreciate the courage it took to create an atmosphere of emotional intelligence, or would he view it as a weakness? The electric energy from the meeting seemed a lifetime away, replaced by the icy grip of professional anxiety. Ethan sat down and opened his laptop, scrolling through his boss's email once more. "We need to talk." Simple words, yet they loomed larger than any project deadline. Amidst the cluttered inbox, the message gleamed ominously. He needed a plan not just to survive the conversation but to seize it as a chance for growth. Remembering the warmth of collective struggle, Ethan recognized this was about more than just him. He thought of Lucy's eyes, wide with vulnerability, and Sally's skeptical yet intrigued expression. He wasn't just advocating for himself. He was giving voice to his team's unsaid fears and hopes. He had tasted the power of authenticity, and now he needed to wield it as a shield in the looming confrontation. With every passing moment, he formulated his approach. Ethan jotted down key points, a balance of facts and feelings he wanted to communicate, the necessity of emotional awareness in leadership, the potential outcomes of a supportive work environment, and the undeniable reality of his own limitations. He wanted his boss to see he wasn't just aspiring to be better, he was beginning to grasp the value of empathy not only as a leader, but as a human being. His next move was critical. What if he framed the meeting as a conversation rather than a reprimand? What if he posed questions that could catalyze change within the organization? His mind raced with possibilities, constructing a narrative where he could advocate for both himself and his team instead of succumbing to fear. Ethan stood up, adrenaline coursing through him. It was time to confront the impending conversation head-on. If he stayed true to the principles he had begun to embrace, he could elevate the discussion. He envisioned the new path he was paving, his growth paralleling the evolution of his workplace culture. As he gathered his thoughts, a knock shattered his reverie. It was Mia, her small frame silhouetted in the doorway. Upon seeing her, a wave of warmth flooded his chest. Here was a reminder that vulnerability wasn't a liability. It was a catalyst for something more profound. She smiled tentatively, and it reignited within him the ideals of connection and commitment he had started to grasp. "Hey, Dad? Can we talk about my science project?" she asked, her eyes full of innocence and a hint of trepidation. Ethan crouched down, the weight of his worries lifted, if only for a moment. "Of course, honey. What's on your mind?" The simple exchange grounded him, illuminating everything he had been striving for: authenticity, connection, engagement. But beneath that interaction lay his decision. It was a small moment yet significant. It reminded him of the stakes in his professional life. To be the leader he envisioned, he had to make an unwavering commitment not only to his colleagues but to those who depended on him at home. With renewed determination, Ethan whispered a silent promise to embrace this evolution. Yet, as he turned to leave with Mia, a chilling realization washed over him. How would he reconcile the connection he felt at home with the daunting expectations of his job? The impending meeting with his boss awaited, a contradiction of strength and vulnerability that could ultimately redefine his path. His heart raced as he glanced back at the email. "We need to talk." The time had come to face not only his boss but the complexities of defining himself within two worlds on the verge of collision. Would he be ready for the confrontation that awaited him? Ethan took a deep breath, centering himself as he entered the polished boardroom with its sleek, modern furniture. The scent of fresh coffee lingered in the air, but it couldn't quell the urgency coursing through his veins. Today was not just another meeting, it was a defining moment. Glancing around, he noted the stony expressions on his colleagues' faces, a mirror to his own internal landscape. Today, he would untangle the web of professional expectations and his commitment to Mia. He needed to bridge the divide between these two realms of his life, a feat that had felt insurmountable until now. When his boss entered, the atmosphere shifted. Ethan felt a wave of apprehension wash over him. Yet he recalled his recent experiences, the laughter shared with Mia, the deep conversations that had stripped away layers of emotional armor. Those moments had taught him that vulnerability was not a weakness but a source of strength. The stakes were high, but more than anything, he understood the importance of authenticity. "Thank you for meeting with me," Ethan began, his voice steady despite the knot in his stomach. "I wanted to discuss our company culture and the importance of emotional intelligence in leadership." His boss raised an eyebrow, intrigue flickering across his face. "And what brought this on?" Ethan inhaled deeply, reflecting on his recent transformation. "I've realized that fostering a supportive environment isn't just beneficial for morale, it's essential for performance. I've experienced it firsthand in my personal life while navigating my relationship with Mia." As he elaborated on the challenges and joys of becoming a father figure for a little girl who had faced so much uncertainty, he noticed the tension in the room shift. Colleagues leaned forward as he shared anecdotes that balanced his own struggles with the newfound insights that Mia had gifted him. "I understand the gravity of my current position," Ethan continued, his trademark confidence shining through layers of vulnerability. "But if we cultivate an atmosphere where our team feels safe expressing their challenges, I believe we'll increase our productivity and overall satisfaction." The room was silent, absorbing the weight of his words. There was no turning back now. He had acknowledged his imperfections but framed them as opportunities for growth both for himself and within the company. Taking a moment, he gauged their reactions. Gone was the initial skepticism. Instead, a sense of shared purpose blossomed. Imagine, he stated compellingly, if we could initiate weekly check-ins across teams. A space where everyone feels seen and heard. It could be transformational. As he laid out his proposal, he couldn't help but reflect on how far he'd come. Gone were the days of burying his emotions behind walls of corporate success. This was a new frontier, a confluence of his identities as a business leader and a nurturing figure in Mia's life. When the meeting concluded, his boss leaned in, a mix of respect and reluctant admiration in his eyes. I underestimated your ability to tackle this from both an emotional and a practical standpoint. Let us workshop your ideas further. A triumphant wave coursed through him. Ethan had achieved clarity, and he introduced vulnerability into the workplace as a corporate asset. This was a victory not just in his career but in his journey toward becoming a father. Later that night, as he reunited with Mia, her exuberant laughter filled the room. They exchanged a playful high five, and in that fleeting, simple gesture, each understood their commitment to one another had morphed into something profound. Their respective battles had intertwined, forming an unwavering bond. "Dad, I finished my science project." Mia beamed, her excitement palpable. As they sprawled next to one another, gathering around the project sprawled across the coffee table, he penetrated the depth of her smile, both curiosity and admiration swirling within. In those moments he wasn't just present, he was living the narrative of a committed father, an ambitious executive, and a man transformed. Ethan's heart swelled with pride. He understood that while he had taken significant strides toward being the father figure Mia deserved, both his professional and personal journeys were far from over. He had to continue facing fears, embracing vulnerability, and fostering connections while proving to himself and others that he could marry the worlds he had once believed were at odds. With a newfound resolve, he smiled at Mia, cherishing every moment. There were challenges ahead, undoubtedly, but he had learned that those challenges could either serve to divide or ultimately unite him with purpose. As the skyline of Chicago glimmered beyond their balcony, Ethan Wallace stood not as a romanticized version of success, but as a man who had at long last found fulfillment in the everyday complexities of love and responsibility. This was not just the end, it was a beautiful beginning. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Your support makes a difference. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share.